The encounter. Captain Ray Carter adjusted the controls of his small, aging spaceship, the Stellar Runner. It was supposed to be a simple delivery run. Just him, the vast emptiness of space, and a little extra cash for his troubles. But this wasn't an ordinary day. The faint, rhythmic beeping on his dashboard pulled his attention. A distress signal. Ray frowned and leaned closer to the screen, his heart picking up speed. The signal was coming from a restricted zone, a region of space no one dared to enter. "Great," Ray muttered, running a hand through his messy brown hair. "Why does trouble always find me?" Against his better judgment, he changed course toward the signal. Curiosity gnawed at him. Who could be out there? And why send a distress signal from such a dangerous place? As he approached the coordinates, his ship's sensors went haywire. The readings made no sense. Energy spikes, strange magnetic fields, and an object far larger than anything he'd seen before. Then he saw it. A colossal alien mothership loomed ahead, its surface shimmering with an eerie golden glow. The ship was massive, shaped like a spiraling nebula, with jagged edges and glowing orbs that pulsed like living hearts. It was unlike anything built by human hands. "Is this even real?" Ray whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of his ship. Before he could react, his ship jolted violently. The controls locked up, alarms blared, and a voice from the computer coldly stated, "Tractor beam engage. External control overriding manual systems." Ray gritted his teeth as his ship was pulled closer to the alien mothership. No amount of button pushing or lever pulling made a difference. He was trapped. Moments later, his ship was swallowed by the massive vessel, disappearing into a hangar bay that stretched farther than his eyes could see. The lights inside the hangar dimmed as the hum of the mothership vibrated through the walls. Ray's heart pounded in his chest. He grabbed a flashlight and a small stun pistol from his emergency kit. If this was going to be his end, he wasn't going down without a fight. The Stellar Runner's hatch opened on its own with a sharp hiss. Cold, sterile air rushed in, sending a chill down Ray's spine. He stepped out cautiously, scanning the area. The hangar was empty, but it didn't feel abandoned. He could sense eyes watching him, hidden in the shadows. "Welcome, human," a voice said, clear and commanding, echoing through the massive space. Ray spun around, aiming his pistol. A figure emerged from the darkness. A tall, elegant alien woman with silver hair flowing like liquid light. Her skin glowed faintly, a soft golden hue, and her eyes were sharp, like twin suns that seemed to pierce right through him. She wore a flowing robe that shimmered with shifting patterns, as if the stars themselves were sewn into the fabric. "Who are you?" Ray demanded, keeping his pistol steady. "What do you want?" The alien woman tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "Lower your weapon. It will not help you here." Ray hesitated, then reluctantly lowered the pistol, though he didn't put it away. "Fine, but I want answers." The woman smiled faintly, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "You are bold. I chose well." "Chose?" Ray asked, his voice rising. "What do you mean, chose?" She stepped closer, her movements graceful yet deliberate. Ray could feel the air grow heavier around her, as if her presence alone altered the atmosphere. "You are here because you have been selected. Out of all your kind, you will determine the fate of your world." Ray's mouth went dry. "The fate of my world? I don't even know who you are." "I am Lyraya," she said, her tone calm but firm. "Champion of the Ilveren Dominion. And you, Captain Ray Carter, are now mine." Ray took a step back, his mind racing. "What do you mean, mine? I don't belong to anyone." Lyraya's gaze softened, just a fraction. "Your defiance is admirable, but your understanding is limited. You will soon learn the truth." Before Ray could respond, the ground beneath his feet began to vibrate. Symbols and patterns lit up on the hangar floor, forming a glowing circle around him. The air grew electric, buzzing with invisible energy. "Wait, what's happening?" Ray shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "You are entering the proving grounds," Loraya said, her voice steady. "Where you will be tested." "Tested for what?" Ray demanded. "For your worthiness," she replied. "And for the survival of your species." The glowing circle flared brightly, and in an instant Ray was gone. The hangar fell silent once more, leaving Loraya standing alone. She watched the space where he had disappeared, her expression unreadable. "May you surprise me, human," she whispered, before turning and vanishing into the shadows. The contest. Ray awoke on a cold, metallic surface, his head pounding. The dim, flickering lights above him cast strange shadows on the walls of the room. He pushed himself up, groaning as his muscles protested. His surroundings were both alien and clinical, a strange blend of organic curves and sharp metallic edges. It was like standing inside a living machine. "Where am I now?" he muttered, rubbing his temples. A sudden, mechanical hum filled the air. The walls around him shifted, revealing a vast chamber that seemed to stretch infinitely in all directions. Floating platforms hovered above bottomless pits, and strange, glowing symbols floated in midair. The room radiated a sense of purpose, as though it was designed not by chance but with chilling precision. "Welcome, Captain Ray Carter." Loraya's voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere. "You have entered the proving grounds." Ray spun around, trying to locate the source of her voice, but the chamber offered no clues. "Proving grounds? What the hell does that mean?" Her voice remained calm, almost detached. "This is where your worth will be tested. The contest begins now." Before he could respond, a part of the floor rose in front of him. A glowing orb hovered above the platform, pulsating with a soft, rhythmic light. Ray instinctively took a step back, unsure of what to expect. Suddenly, the orb exploded into a holographic projection. The image of a human man appeared, older, rugged, and eerily familiar. Ray froze. "Dad." The hologram spoke, its voice distorted yet unmistakably his father's. "Ray, you've always been a disappointment, running from responsibility, wasting your potential. Now you think you can save your kind. Prove it." The words stung, but Ray clenched his fists, refusing to let the illusion rattle him. "You're not real," he muttered, more to himself than to the projection. The hologram dissolved, replaced by a series of glowing symbols floating in front of him. Loraya's voice returned, emotionless and clinical. "Your first trial. Intelligence. Solve the sequence to proceed. Fail, and the consequences will be dire." "Great," Ray grumbled, stepping closer to the symbols. They shifted and spun, forming patterns that seemed to mock him. It was like solving a Rubik's Cube in zero gravity. Impossible to predict, yet somehow connected. His mind raced. Numbers, colors, shapes, none of it made sense at first. But then he saw it. A rhythm, a hidden order beneath the chaos. He began rearranging the symbols, his fingers hovering just above the glowing projections. As he worked, the room grew colder. The walls seemed to close in, and the pressure around him increased. Sweat dripped down his face, but he pushed through, driven by a mix of determination and defiance. With a final movement, the symbols aligned, and the orb pulsed brightly before vanishing. The room returned to its original state, and Ray let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "One down," he muttered. "How many more to go?" Loraya's voice interrupted his thoughts. "You show promise, but the next trial will test more than your mind." The floor beneath Ray shifted again, this time splitting into a narrow path suspended over the endless void. Platforms appeared ahead, each separated by a seemingly impossible gap. As Ray approached the edge of the first platform, he noticed something else. Large, shadowy figures moving in the distance. "Physical endurance," Loraya announced. "Survive the gauntlet and reach the other side. But beware, not all obstacles are stationary." Before Ray could ask what that meant, a loud roar echoed through the chamber. His stomach dropped as he saw the source of the sound. a massive insect-like creature with razor-sharp limbs crawling toward him from the opposite platform. "Oh, come on," Ray shouted, backing up instinctively. He glanced at the path ahead. Jumping from platform to platform was already dangerous. Adding a hostile alien predator to the mix was overkill. The creature lunged, its claws slicing through the air where Ray had stood a moment ago. He leaped to the next platform, barely making the gap. The platform wobbled under his weight, threatening to tip into the void. "Move, Ray, move," he muttered, forcing himself forward. Each jump tested his strength and balance, and the creature was relentless, its speed far greater than Ray had anticipated. It leaped effortlessly between platforms, closing the distance. Sweat poured down Ray's face as he reached the final platform. The creature was right behind him, its claws inches from his back. With a desperate shout, Ray lunged forward, grabbing onto the edge of the next platform. His fingers slipped, and for a terrifying moment, he dangled over the abyss. The creature roared again, preparing to strike, but something unexpected happened. A blast of energy shot from above, hitting the creature squarely. It let out a final pained scream before disintegrating into a cloud of ash. Ray pulled himself onto the platform, panting heavily. He looked up to see Lariah standing on a balcony far above, a strange weapon in her hand. "Why?" he called out, his voice hoarse. "Why save me?" She stared down at him, her expression unreadable. "This is only the beginning, human. Your survival serves a greater purpose." Before Ray could press her further, the platform beneath him began to descend. He was being pulled deeper into the ship, toward another trial. His heart sank, but his resolve hardened. Whatever this contest was, he wasn't about to give up. Not now. Not ever. Secrets unveiled. The platform descended in silence, carrying Ray deeper into the alien mothership. As the dim, pulsating lights of the upper levels faded, he found himself engulfed in darkness, save for faint streaks of bioluminescent blue running along the walls. The air felt heavy, as if it carried the weight of countless stories waiting to be uncovered. When the platform halted with a soft hiss, Ray stepped onto solid ground. Before him stretched a vast, cathedral-like chamber. The space was lined with towering columns of crystalline material, each emitting a soft hum that seemed almost alive. Suspended mid-air were translucent spheres, and within each sphere were objects, human objects, frozen in time. A soldier's helmet, a book with frayed pages, a photograph of a family smiling on a sunny day. They floated like ghosts in a museum dedicated to Earth. "What is this place?" Ray murmured, his voice echoing faintly. "This," came Lariah's voice, resonating through the chamber, "is the Hall of Memories. Every artifact you see has been taken from your world, each holding a fragment of your history." Ray turned, searching for her, but she wasn't there. Her voice, calm and measured, continued, "You walk among echoes of your past. Triumphs and tragedies, love and loss. My people have preserved these to study and understand what humanity truly is." Anger bubbled to the surface. "You've been stealing from us, spying on us, and now you're playing judge, jury, and executioner." "It is not so simple," Lariah said, her voice softer now. "Step forward, and you will see." Ray hesitated but eventually walked deeper into the chamber. The hum of the crystals grew louder, resonating in his chest. He stopped in front of a sphere containing a charred toy spaceship, its once bright paint now faded and blackened. The sight tugged at something deep within him, a memory he couldn't quite place. "Why show me this?" he demanded, his fists clenched. "What's the point of this collection?" "These artifacts carry more than physical presence," Lariah replied. "They hold emotional imprints. They tell stories of who you are, and they show us who you might become." Before Ray could respond, one of the spheres began to glow brighter, drawing his attention. The artifact within, a battered photograph, started to shimmer. The edges blurred, and suddenly, the room was filled with light. Ray shielded his eyes as the light formed a holographic projection. He squinted, and his breath caught in his throat. The projection showed a family. His family. His younger self was there, no older than 8, standing between his mother and father. They were smiling, but the image was grainy, like an old video recording. He could hear their laughter faintly, distorted but unmistakable. Ray staggered backward. No, this can't be real. It is not real, Larea said, appearing behind him. Her sudden presence made him jump. But it is a reflection of your memories, drawn from the artifact. How do you know this? Ray asked, his voice trembling. How do you know about them? Larea stepped closer, her golden eyes locking onto his. Because we've studied you, Ray Carter. Not just humanity as a whole, but you. Your name, your past, your choices. You were not chosen at random. The weight of her words sank in. What do you mean, studied me? I'm just a pilot, a nobody. Why me? You are more significant than you realize, Larea said. Your life, your decisions, represent the duality of humanity. You have experienced loss and failure, yet you persist. You fight, even when the odds are against you. My people believe that such resilience is both humanity's greatest strength and its greatest danger. Ray's mind raced, trying to make sense of her words. So what? You're testing me to decide if humanity deserves to survive. Yes, Larea said simply, but it is not only about survival. It is about what you will become if left unchecked. My people have seen countless species rise, burn bright, and destroy themselves. Humanity stands on the edge of that same precipice. Ray turned back to the floating artifacts, his anger simmering. And what gives you the right to decide our fate? Who made you the judge? Larea's expression hardened. Because we have seen what happens when species like yours are left to their own devices. Entire civilizations erased, galaxies consumed by greed and war. We will not let history repeat itself. Her words stung, but Ray refused to back down. We're not perfect, he said, his voice firm. But we're not monsters either. We love, we create, we protect. Maybe you're only seeing the bad because you're too afraid to see the good. Larea studied him for a moment, her gaze unreadable. Then she gestured toward a new sphere, glowing at the far end of the chamber. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps there is more to your kind than destruction. But that is what you must prove. The sphere pulsed, and the chamber shifted around them. The artifacts faded into the background, replaced by a single doorway. Beyond it, Ray could see the faint glow of another room. What's in there? He asked. The next trial, Larea said. The truth you seek lies ahead. But beware, truth is not always what you wish it to be. Ray took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. He didn't trust Larea or her people, but he knew one thing for sure. He wouldn't let them define humanity's worth without a fight. As he stepped toward the doorway, the light from the sphere dimmed, and the hum of the crystals faded behind him. Whatever awaited him next, he was ready to face it. The trial. The doorway hissed open, revealing a sprawling, otherworldly landscape unlike anything Ray had ever seen. He stepped forward cautiously, his boots sinking into soft, sand-like ground that shimmered faintly under a sky filled with swirling colors. Towers of jagged rock spiraled upward, defying gravity, and streams of glowing liquid snaked through the terrain like veins of light. This is the trial grounds, Larea's voice echoed, no longer distant but resonating directly in his ears. Here you will face challenges that test the essence of humanity, strength, willpower, and the capacity for empathy. Ray looked around, his muscles tense. He felt exposed, as though something unseen was watching him. I've had enough of your games, he muttered. Just tell me what you want. Larea's voice softened. What I want does not matter. What you prove here will decide the fate of your kind. Before Ray could argue, the ground beneath him began to tremble. He stumbled, catching himself against a nearby rock formation as the shimmering sand shifted and parted. From the depths rose a towering humanoid figure, made entirely of metallic shards that glinted in the strange light. Its eyes, if they could be called that, were glowing slits, radiating an eerie cold energy. "A sentinel," Larea explained. "Your first trial, endurance. Prove that humanity can withstand overwhelming odds without faltering." The sentinel let out a low, rumbling growl, its movements fluid despite its jagged appearance. Without warning, it lunged at Ray with surprising speed, swinging an arm that transformed into a massive blade. Ray barely had time to dive out of the way. He rolled onto his feet, his heart pounding as the blade slammed into the ground, sending shards of rock flying. "Overwhelming odds. Great," he muttered, scrambling for cover. The sentinel advanced, its metallic body shifting and reshaping with every step. Ray grabbed a jagged piece of rock and hurled it at the creature, but the shard bounced harmlessly off its shimmering surface. "Wonderful," Ray grumbled. "Any tips, Larea? Or are you just here to narrate my doom?" "There is no aid in this trial," Larea replied. "Survival is your responsibility." Ray cursed under his breath as the sentinel's blade arm shifted into a massive hammer. It swung again, and the ground beneath him erupted, throwing him backward. He hit the ground hard. The wind knocked from his lungs. Gasping, he struggled to his feet. His mind raced. He couldn't outrun the thing, and he definitely couldn't fight it head-on. He needed a plan. His eyes darted to the glowing streams of liquid nearby. They pulsed with energy, lighting up the ground around them. Maybe, just maybe, they were the key. The sentinel charged again, its form rippling with lethal intent. Ray sprinted toward the nearest stream, skidding to a halt beside the glowing liquid. He hesitated for a split second, then plunged his hand into the stream. The liquid was cold and searing at the same time, sending a shockwave of energy coursing through his body. The sentinel paused, as if sensing the sudden surge in Ray's aura. It cocked its head, its glowing eyes narrowing. Ray's muscles tingled, his movements feeling lighter, faster. He didn't have time to question it. When the sentinel swung again, he dodged with newfound agility, rolling under its massive arm and grabbing another shard of rock. This time, when he threw it, the shard crackled with energy, embedding itself in the sentinel's torso. The creature let out a distorted roar, its form flickering as the energy destabilized it. Ray didn't stop. He grabbed more shards, plunging them into the stream and hurling them at the sentinel with everything he had. The final shard struck the creature's core, and it let out a deafening wail before collapsing into a heap of metallic fragments. Ray fell to his knees, his chest heaving as the energy drained from his body. "Well done," Larea said, her voice tinged with something resembling approval. Ray looked up, sweat dripping down his face. "That's it. You drop a killing machine on me, and all I get is a well done." "The trial is far from over," she replied. The shimmering ground beneath Ray's feet shifted again, and he was suddenly standing in a new environment. A dense forest with trees that pulsed with faint blue light. The air was heavy, almost suffocating, and strange. Bird-like creatures darted through the canopy. "Your second trial. Compassion," Larea said. "Find the injured. Decide their fate." Ray frowned. Decide their fate. What does that even mean? Ahead, he saw movement. He pushed through the dense foliage, his boots crunching on the glowing underbrush. As he emerged into a clearing, his stomach twisted. A young alien lay on the ground, its body trembling. It was small, barely reaching his waist, with scales that shimmered like glass. Its large, tearful eyes looked up at him, filled with pain. Beside it, a device blinked with red lights, a bomb. "Save the creature," Larea's voice echoed, "but risk your own life. Leave it, and you ensure your survival." Ray froze, his mind racing. The timer on the bomb was counting down. 2 minutes. He looked at the creature, its tiny hands clutching at its wounded leg. "Damn it," he muttered, dropping to his knees beside the alien. He examined the bomb. It was unlike anything he'd seen before, its mechanisms foreign and intricate. The creature whimpered, and Ray placed a hand on its shoulder. "It's okay," he said, though he wasn't sure if it understood him. "I'll get you out of this." The timer ticked down. 1 minute, 30 seconds. Ray's hands moved instinctively, pulling at wires and panels. Sweat dripped into his eyes. But he didn't stop. 30 seconds, Larea warned. Not helping. Ray snapped, yanking out a glowing wire. The bomb let out a high-pitched whine, and for a moment, he thought he'd failed. But then the lights dimmed, and the device fell silent. Ray slumped back, his hands shaking. The alien looked at him with wide, grateful eyes before it scurried off into the forest. "You chose wisely," Larea said, her voice almost impressed. Ray stood, his legs weak, but his resolve stronger than ever. "I'm not here to play by your rules. I'm here to prove that we're more than what you think we are." The forest began to dissolve, and Ray knew another trial awaited. But this time, he wasn't afraid. Whatever came next, he would face it head-on. For humanity. For himself. For the future. The betrayal. Ray felt the world dissolve around him again, the edges of the dense forest unraveling like threads being plucked from a tapestry. The transition was disorienting, but he had grown used to the way this alien ship shifted reality. His boots hit solid ground, and he found himself standing in a circular chamber bathed in stark, white light. It was quiet, too quiet. He turned slowly, taking in his surroundings. The walls of the chamber were smooth and seamless, marked only by faint, glowing patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it rested a small metallic device. Its design was intricate, almost beautiful, and it emitted a faint hum that filled the air. "What is this?" Ray muttered, his voice echoing in the emptiness. "It is a choice." Larea's voice came from behind him, startling him. Ray spun around, his fists clenching instinctively. Larea stood there, her silver hair glowing faintly in the light. Her expression was unreadable, but there was a tension in her posture that hadn't been there before. "You seem to enjoy throwing me into impossible situations," Ray said, his voice sharp. "So, what now? Another trial? Another test to prove humanity isn't a bunch of monsters." Larea stepped closer, her golden eyes locking onto his. "This is no ordinary test, Ray. It is the culmination of everything you have faced so far." Ray gestured toward the device on the pedestal. "And what exactly am I supposed to do with this thing?" Larea hesitated, something flickering in her eyes. "Doubt, perhaps, or guilt. The device holds the key to your world's future. With a single touch, you can decide whether humanity is allowed to thrive or is brought to its knees." Ray's breath hitched. "What do you mean, brought to its knees? You've been saying this whole time that these trials are about proving our worth. Now you're telling me I have to make the call." "Humanity's potential is undeniable," Larea said, her voice soft but firm. "But so is its capacity for destruction. My people have been watching your species for centuries. We've seen your wars, your greed, your carelessness. And we've seen your resilience, your compassion, your ingenuity. This device will determine which side of humanity prevails." Ray stared at her, his mind reeling. "You're asking me to play God with my entire planet." "You already are," Larea replied. "Every choice you've made here has been a reflection of the choices your species makes every day. This is merely the final step." Before Ray could respond, the walls of the chamber flickered, transforming into a massive holographic display. Scenes from Earth appeared, cities bustling with life, forests teeming with wildlife, oceans stretching endlessly under the sun. But the images shifted quickly, turning darker. Smoke-filled skies, battlefields littered with debris, starving children in crumbling villages. "Enough," Ray snapped, his voice echoing through the chamber. "I get it. We're flawed. But we're not beyond saving." Larea tilted her head, studying him. "Are you certain? My people believe that allowing humanity to continue unchecked is a risk too great to take." "And what about you?" Ray asked, stepping closer to her. Do you think we're worth saving? For the first time, Lariah hesitated. Her gaze faltered, and she looked away. I don't know, she admitted. I have seen the worst of your kind, but I have also seen glimpses of greatness. I brought you here because I wanted to believe that you could prove my people wrong. Ray's jaw tightened. So this was never about the trials. It was about you wanting to justify your own doubts. Lariah's eyes snapped back to his, her expression hardening. You misunderstand. My people's decision is final. If you fail here, the device will send a signal to our fleet, and they will neutralize your planet. Ray felt his blood turn cold. Neutralize? You mean destroy it? Lariah nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, but if you succeed, they will stand down. Humanity will be given a chance to prove it can change. Ray turned back to the device, his mind racing. The weight of the choice threatened to crush him. How could he decide the fate of billions of people, knowing the consequences of failure? Why me? He asked, his voice shaking. Why not someone smarter, someone more capable? Because you are not perfect, Lariah said. And perfection is not what we seek. It is your flaws, your struggles, and your persistence that make you the ideal candidate. You are human in every sense of the word. Ray closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He could feel the energy radiating from the device, as if it were alive and waiting for him to act. Fine, he said finally, his voice steady. But I'm not doing this for you or your people. I'm doing this for us, for humanity. Lariah stepped back, giving him space. Then make your choice, Ray Carter. But know this, once the device is activated, there is no turning back. Ray reached out, his hand hovering over the device. For a moment, he hesitated, every doubt and fear crashing down on him. But then he thought of Earth, the good and the bad, the beauty and the chaos. He thought of the people who still fought for a better future, even in the darkest times. With a deep breath, he placed his hand on the device. The chamber erupted in light, and Ray felt a surge of energy rush through him. The holograms of Earth flickered wildly, the images shifting faster and faster until they stopped. Ray stumbled back, his vision blurry. He looked up at Lariah, who stood frozen, her eyes wide with shock. What happened? He asked, his voice hoarse. Lariah didn't answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was filled with something Ray hadn't expected. Awe. You did it, she said. You proved me wrong. The chamber began to dissolve around them, and Ray felt himself being pulled upward. He didn't know where he was going, but one thing was certain. This wasn't over. Not yet. The sacrifice. The room shifted again, and Ray found himself standing on a bridge of light, suspended in a void of swirling darkness. Below him, endless spirals of stars and galaxies shimmered faintly, as if the entire universe were watching. The air was cold and sharp, crackling with unseen energy that set his nerves on edge. Ahead, Lariah stood, her silhouette illuminated by a golden glow. Her expression was no longer the stoic mask she had worn throughout his trials. Now there was something raw in her gaze, an intensity that made Ray uneasy. This is the final stage, Ray, she said, her voice softer than before, almost reluctant. But this one is not a trial. It is a choice. Ray frowned, stepping forward cautiously. A choice. What kind of choice? Lariah raised her hand, and a sphere of light appeared between them. Inside the sphere was a holographic image of Earth, spinning slowly in its orbit. It was beautiful, yet fragile, surrounded by a faint halo of light. You have proven much, Lariah began, her golden eyes locked on his. Your resilience, your intellect, your compassion, but none of it will matter if humanity cannot overcome its own nature. My people believe your kind is a threat to the galaxy, violent, reckless, incapable of peace. Ray clenched his fists. And you? What do you believe? Lariah hesitated, her gaze faltering for the first time. I believe you have the potential to be more. But belief is not enough. The Ilveran Dominion demands assurance, and for that, there must be a sacrifice. The air grew heavier as she gestured, and a second sphere appeared beside the first. Inside it was a shimmering core, pulsating with energy. Ray recognized it immediately. It was the heart of the mothership, the power source that controlled its systems, and more importantly, the weapon it carried. This ship contains a device capable of wiping out all life on Earth, Larea explained. It was created as a failsafe, in case you failed the trials. The Dominion does not take chances. Ray's blood ran cold. You're saying you were ready to destroy us from the start? Yes, she admitted. But you have forced them to reconsider. You have one final choice to make, Ray. You can destroy this ship, ensuring the safety of Earth, but in doing so, you will doom my people. Without this vessel, we cannot defend ourselves against the threats that plague our galaxy. Ray stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. So it's either us or you. Larea stepped closer, her voice trembling ever so slightly. Not entirely. There is a third option, but it comes at great personal cost. What's the third option? Ray demanded, his voice laced with frustration. You can take my place as the champion of humanity, Larea said, her expression unreadable. If you do, you will join the Dominion as Earth's representative. You will ensure your planet's survival, but you will never return home. Your life will no longer be your own. The words hit Ray like a physical blow. He stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. You want me to leave everything behind? My home, my life. Why me? Because you have proven that you are more than just one man, she said. You embody what humanity can become. Brave, resourceful, selfless. If you stay, Earth may survive today, but without a voice among the stars, its future will remain uncertain. You can change that. Ray looked down at the bridge beneath him, his thoughts swirling in chaos. Destroying the ship would save Earth but doom the Ilverans. Letting the ship live meant trusting a species that had already judged humanity harshly. And the third option, it was almost too much to bear. How do I know I can trust you? He asked finally. Larea stepped closer, her golden eyes meeting his. You don't, but I have trusted you, Ray. Against the wishes of my people, I allowed you to take these trials, to prove yourself. I risked everything for the hope that you would show me something different. And you did. The sincerity in her voice shook him. For a moment, the weight of his choice lifted, replaced by something deeper, a sense of purpose. Ray took a deep breath, his gaze shifting between the two spheres. If I destroy the ship, Earth survives, but your people are doomed. If I let it live, Earth remains under threat. And if you choose the third path, Larea said, you ensure the safety of both, but you sacrifice your life as you know it. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the faint hum of the bridge. Ray closed his eyes, picturing Earth, its forests, its oceans, its people. He thought of his family, his friends, the countless lives depending on him. And then he thought of Larea, standing alone against the weight of her people's expectations. When he opened his eyes, his decision was made. I'll do it, he said quietly. Larea tilted her head. Perhaps not at first, but your actions here will ripple across time. They will see the changes, feel the hope you've left behind. And one day, they will understand. Ray closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and pressed his hand to the panel. The room filled with light again, brighter and more encompassing than before. He felt a surge of energy rush through him, and for a brief moment, he saw visions, a kaleidoscope of futures, of Earth thriving among the stars, of humanity rising to its potential. The images filled him with a strange sense of peace, even as tears streamed down his face. When the light faded, Larea was gone. Ray stood alone in the chamber, his body humming with the newfound power of his role. The view of Earth remained, a silent promise of the world he had left behind. But now, there was something else, a new galaxy of possibilities stretching out before him. He placed a hand on the railing, staring at his home one last time. "For you," he whispered. "For all of us." The ship began to hum, its engines powering up for the journey ahead. And as it moved away from Earth, Ray stood tall, ready to face the unknown, carrying the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. It wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Luraya's eyes widened, a flicker of something, relief, crossing her face. "You will take my place." Ray nodded. "I'll be Earth's representative. But I have one condition." Luraya tilted her head. "What is it?" "You ensure that Earth has a future," Ray said firmly. "You help us, not just judge us. Promise me that, and I'll do what you ask." Luraya stepped forward, placing a hand over her heart. "You have my word." The spheres dissolved, and the light of the bridge grew brighter, enveloping them both. As the void around them faded, Ray felt a strange sense of peace. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew one thing for certain. He had made the right choice. For Earth. For the future. For hope. The resolution. Ray awoke to silence. The overwhelming brightness that had enveloped him during his choice was gone, replaced by the soft hum of machinery and the dim, golden glow of alien architecture. He was back on the mothership, but something felt different. The weight in the air was gone, replaced by an almost serene calmness. He rose slowly, his body heavier than before, as though he were carrying more than just his own strength. When he looked down, he saw the faint glimmer of intricate markings etched into his skin, symbols that pulsed with a soft, golden light. They were not painful, but they radiated a strange energy, a connection he couldn't explain. "You have chosen well, Ray Carter." He turned to see Luraya standing before him, but she, too, was changed. Her regal robes had been replaced by a simpler, darker garment, and her usual aura of authority had softened into something more human, almost vulnerable. Her silver hair no longer glowed as brightly, and her eyes, though still sharp, held a quiet sadness. "So," Ray said, his voice hoarse, "this is it. I'm your new champion, right? What happens now?" Luraya stepped closer, her gaze steady but solemn. "Yes, you are now humanity's voice among the stars. The markings you bear are a symbol of that, an oath etched into your very being. They will give you strength, wisdom, and access to the Dominion's knowledge. But they also bind you to this path." Ray touched the glowing patterns on his arm. They were warm to the touch, like sunlight on his skin. "What about you? What happens to you?" Luraya hesitated, looking away for the first time. "I am no longer the champion of my people. My choice to allow you to take the trials has cost me everything. My title, my authority, even my place among the Dominion. I will return to the Ilverans, but I do so as an exile." Ray felt a pang of guilt. "You risked everything for me. For Earth. And now you're being punished for it." She nodded, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "It is a price I was willing to pay. Your decision proved that my belief in humanity was not misplaced. That is enough for me." Ray frowned, his mind racing. "But there has to be another way. You can't just." "There is no other way," she interrupted gently. "The Dominion operates on strict rules, and I have broken them. My role in this is over." Her calm acceptance of her fate angered Ray. He stepped closer, his fists clenched. "You gave me this chance. You believed in us. I'm not going to let them throw you away like you don't matter." Luraya's expression softened further. "You cannot fight this, Ray. My time is over. Yours is just beginning." Before he could argue further, the chamber around them began to shift. The walls dissolved into shimmering waves of light, and suddenly they were standing in what looked like a command center. A massive view screen dominated the far wall, displaying Earth in stunning detail. Ray's breath caught as he saw his homeworld suspended in the vastness of space, its blues and greens vivid against the black void. The sight filled him with both awe and a deep, aching sadness. He had made his choice, but the reality of it was sinking in. "This is your final task," Larea said, gesturing toward a glowing panel that had appeared before them. "You must confirm your role as humanity's champion. Once you do, the mothership will leave this sector and begin its journey to the Dominion's core. There you will represent Earth in the Council of Species." Ray stared at the panel. A single handprint glowed on its surface, waiting for his touch. The simplicity of it felt almost cruel, given the weight of what it represented. He turned back to Larea. "And that's it. No goodbye, no chance to return. I just leave." Larea stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Goodbyes are not the end, Ray. You carry your home with you, in your memories, in your choices, and as long as you remain true to who you are, Earth will never truly lose you." Her words, though comforting, did little to ease the ache in his chest, but he nodded, stepping toward the panel. His hand hovered over the glowing mark, his fingers trembling. "Will they know?" he asked quietly. "Will the people back home know what happened?"